Hey John and Carrie, I know you're concerned with the electrical, so I'll do a little review of the electrical panels. There's two electrical panels. This is the main panel on the right, and this is actually a secondary panel on the left. For a 200 amp service, there is a certain wire size we're looking for. This one's a 3/0 wire. The gauge of this wire is good. On the breakers themselves, all of the breakers and wire gauges match up. So the gauge itself versus the breakers is fine. The 60 amp breaker at the bottom, this is the feed I was talking about for the secondary panel. So for the secondary panel, this supplies the range for the kitchen, refrigerator, and then a few common areas in the basement. One thing I notice about this panel is this green screw right here. This will be a little hard to see. This green screw is actually a panel bond. So they've taken the panel bond and unhooked it from the neutral terminal bar. So they've taken all the grounds and neutrals and they've tied them together, which is fine, but then I see my main ground, which is this big copper wire. The main ground itself is on the grounding bar. So the ground bar and the neutral bar are isolated from each other, but the grounds have been put on the neutral bar itself. So this either needs to be treated like a regular panel where the grounds and neutrals are tied together with the main ground added, or it either needs to be treated like or it can be treated like a secondary panel where they isolate the neutrals from the grounds, which means you would take these grounds off the neutral bar and put them on the grounding bar itself. One or the other. I see no overheated wires. I see no signs of distress. And then the actual gauge, the wire gauge for the 60 amp secondary panel is good. Now the secondary panel here, normally you would separate the grounds and neutrals here, but this is so close to the regular panel, it's fine. The breakers and the wire gauges in here look good, and I see no signs of overheating. You've got some room to grow too. We've still got 3 slots here if you want to add anything to the house, and 200 amp service for this size of house. The main meter on the outside of the house, this is actually called a emergency disconnect. Main breaker for the whole house, 200 amps right next to the electrical meter. I do see that at the electrical meter itself, the base actually needs to be sealed. The mortar, this is pretty common for this brick to kick out to make room for the service conduit, but I would seal this up. This mortar's deteriorating. We don't want. So the electrical service for this neighborhood and your house is underground service. This is the transformer. Transformers by the street, and there's your house. We're approximately 50 to 60 feet from the house. All underground service.